I like Dave's. Hello. Hello. So that's kind of cool. Like, what? I mean, I noticed that I just forgot to say something the other day that I guess YouTube has this with the crowns and the numbers. Is that um top contributors? Top, is that what that is, or is it first? No, it must be top contributors. Dave and Des Dak, Dak and G got number ones. Michelle, Free Midwest, No Cookies, and Oscar have a number two crown. That's cool. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Pop chatters, sweet. What is going on? Thanks again, David, for your super chat donation. That's always appreciated. What do we have to discuss today? There's a tsunami. Yeah, giant foam finger. My brother called me. He's vacationing in Kauai and was saying that. One second, let me see something. They had that major earthquake. Eric Vigilant 999. God bless you, Father Deacon Anna. Thank you. God bless you. One second. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, sorry. I just somebody was texting me. And that big earthquake in Russia, and then uh, the tsunami warnings. Although I think in Hawaii that uh, it got downgraded to a bit. But what was crazy is um, there were videos where like people were still playing like on the sand, and I'm like, what? Like these people just don't know. Like there's a potential tsunami coming. Supposedly a couple hours ago, it just hit the coast of California. That's funny. I was just actually, forgive me, I was actually just texting Lower Coffee. It's weird that you mentioned that. Um, let's see. What else? I've never even been to Bonner's Ferry. So has anybody been there? I heard it's kind of cool. All right, one second. Just give me a second. I need to send this off real quick. I am back. Sorry, I just had to take care of that. Boomer Bob? Who's Boomer Bob? Oh, your parents, Snooky's parents were in Hawaii. Yeah, they were back here. My brother had to get up to higher ground. It's so hard. There were so many people. It's hard for me to remember. Um, you guys already sent me. Jonathan, good to see you. How many people we have? 26. Mount Rainier's have been earthquakes. What's going on, man? Tectonic plates are moving. I'm looking up some other news. All right. Questions. Here's tsunami stuff. 8.7 magnitude. Shh. Earthquake. That's a huge. That's a huge earthquake. Oh, here we go. Here is Newport Beach, California. No immediate threat on the coastline. Look at that. It actually would come all the way into Back Bay there. But as far as I saw this morning on the news, it just, I forget what the tide rate, how much it went up. Is that crazy though that there's no way to really predict how big the wave, the wave will actually be? That's why you can say this is coming in, it's going to be huge. And so all of the science that we have can't actually predict. And then that's why you get the downgrade. Oh, nothing happened. But obviously, you've got to be ready for in case it is. And one of the things you're ready for, don't play down on the. You've seen these videos where people go down and they die. It's happened. I think my mom, when she was younger, when she lived in Hawaii, and there was a big tidal wave, and everybody went down to go watch it, and they died. Then you have what was that big one? Maybe 12 years ago. Um, where was that? They did a movie on it. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Was it in Thailand or something? Somewhere over there that those people died. Yeah, don't mess around. Indonesia. Thank you. Yeah, if you that's what, like, you saw those videos, like, it was going way, I was like, oh man, pull, like, you're done. That would be so scary. Yeah, you just hope you have time to run, like, just like to see something like that. All right, other news. So we got tsunami, earthquakes. 20 years old today have the testosterone of 70-year-olds in the 1970s. Sad, huh? The drop of testosterone. Is this a Catholic guy? Oh, so man, this lady, Lizzie. How many people does she have? Like, talk about, holy smokes. 71K followers. Biggest cold poster, Protestant cold poster out there could be Lizzie. Uh, Themes about Protestantism. So I don't know. She's responded to something. He's probably a Roman Catholic account. It says your personal relation with Jesus still needs a priest. So Protestants flip out about, take it up with the apostles of the Bible. And there was this huge kind of fight on X about, says there's only one mediator. I mean, seriously, what is the worst thing? One of the worst things that's ever happened for Protestants is they were given a Bible to read to their own destruction. It's absolutely amazing how they just can't seem to read. They read almost everything the wrong way. What does that mean? What do you think that means? I'm going to ask you, let's do a class. What do you think there's only one mediator between God and man? And that's Jesus. It's talking about God assumes human nature, that it can unite the divine to mediate, right? There's only one person who is divine, who assumed human nature and mediated and brought the possibility, right, theosis to in salvation to, that's Jesus Christ. That's pretty simple. Yes, because he's both God and man. What do they read? they read everything's minimalism. I mean, think about the solas. Think about your relation. Let's take it out of the theological context. And just in normal human relation. Imagine if in marriage and dating and the workplace, in school, and your interpersonal relationships, you had solas. What's the least I can do to make this relationship work? Well, why do I need other people? Why would I want, shouldn't we just have one? Let's all do minimalism. Isn't that funny? I mean, you literally have 5 solas. It's telling you their religion is the minimalistic religion. It's, yeah, one sola to rule them all. It's almost similar to Islam. Remember, Islam took off because it's such a dumb, stupid, simplistic religion for a bunch of Bedouins and desert people that probably didn't have an IQ higher than 70. And you see they use this argument that, well, the Trinity's too complicated. Actually, that's what happened with Islam, is that Muhammad rejected that stuff because it was too complicated. It was like, let's just boil it down to the dumbest, lowest common denominator. That's Protestantism. Let's boil it down to the least, the bare minimum. Also, they're stuck in dialectics. So they think that if part of your salvation is other people, and we Orthodox definitely say that. Notice when you're baptized, as Tertullian says, one Christian is no Christian. You're baptized in the entire community. The marriage ceremony, all this is a communal. We're being saved together. One part of the body suffers, the whole body suffers, right? We have the scriptures. You don't do it alone. But that does, it's in the Protestant mind, having the intercession of the saints. So first of all, they confuse intercession and mediation. The mediation is the hypostatic union. Jesus Christ, fully divine, assumes human nature. And universal human nature, so that all die are raised in Christ in baptism. For all will be raised to eternal life, and how they experience that will depend on the virtues and whether they made friends with God. So intercession, worship, all this different stuff, they see, well, that can't be salvific because that takes away from God. So it's always an either or fallacy with them. But it's a both and in Orthodoxy. It doesn't take away from God. It's a communal corporate affair in which you get to participate. But notice everything is that way. It's works or faith. Grace set against nature. Grace set against work. I mean, they even define grace as an unmerited gift, whereas we would define grace is, that's actually a divine energy. It's God. Let's go over some other ones. Salvation versus sanctification. Heaven versus earth, right? Oh, we're not of this world. You see that everything's set against each other. Um, I had another one that I was just thinking of. I can't. God versus man is set against. That's why they think if man participates of his own free will in the process of salvation, then it takes away God's. That's why it's unmerited for them. Grace is an unmerited gift. There's nothing you can do, so God's got to do it for you. You go get him, Jesus. Think of another one. Yeah, faith is a work. It's an action. It's a concrete act doing something. Help me think of some more dialectics. In catechesis class last year, I'd list a whole bunch of them up there, and now I can't remember. Oh, dead versus living. They're actually saying that we can't commune and pray to the dead because they're dead. So now everybody's Seventh-day Adventist. They're in soul sleep or in that, like, what do you think's going on? Those who are in Christ, you're saying, see how limited their God is? God doesn't have, those who are in Christ do not have the power to work and help us through the power of God. Then your God's not omnipotent. He can't conquer death. Your God's not omnipotent. Yeah, world versus not of the world of this world. Um I can't think of the other solas. Anyways, if they come along, let me know. To be fair, I think Protestants have Romophobia. They're so conditioned. I mean, they're literally defined in terms of the antithesis of Rome. Like, that they can't actually they can't actually get things right because they're Protestants. They are the opposite of, and so they make everything minimal, right? Because they're so conditioned to think like I've got to be anti-Roman that they miss all the orthodox stuff. Capital O and lower. I think I think that's happened to them. I mean, I know from my own experience that anything that smacked that, I mean, it's just, that seems papist, like praying to the saints. You know, Mary, that's papism. I'm trying to find some more. What do you guys think? Yeah, Puritans are the worst. Yeah, Brazil, great point. His sacrifice was efficacious to save everyone. Because remember, in Calvinism, it isn't saying yes to Christ's sacrifice. Um, God only chooses to impute that righteousness on some. Instead of all lives matter, only some lives matter in Calvin. We got to make stickers like that. On the flip side, notice how the non-Calvinist Protestants will then frame for us if you say that, yeah, works are part of your salvation. Then they'll frame contra Calvinism it in a way that says, so Christ's sacrifice wasn't enough. So there again, it's minimalism. It's like, well, first of all, those words don't mean the same thing. It's your prior presuppositions that we don't believe it's a juridical, we don't believe in penal substitutionary atonement. Salvation isn't cashed out in terms of merits, which is what they're reacting. They're reacting to and protesting the Roman Catholic notion of merits, whereas we would say, no, it's in terms of virtues and ontology. Like that's what's salvation. So, and the will, through acquiring the virtues, healing the will, and so that takes work, not because. And I always give the analogy of a rehab. So think about the works that actually work in rehab and then don't. If you just run through, let's say, well, I did all the steps, i.e., it's like, well, added up all the merits of the program. Why am I still an addict and not healed? Because I don't want to be healed. That's what Christ says. Do you want to be healed to the paralytic? We see this all the time. It's a court ordered rehab. Somebody doesn't want to be there. They can go through all the steps. It doesn't do anything. Because healing spiritually and mentally isn't about, well, I said the formula correct or I did all the merits and added them up. And so notice how this is a very juridical. Well, I did my community service, so you now have to give me something. No, if you understand this in terms outside of the courtroom and in terms of therapy, a hospital model of healing, you have to really want it and work at it. So if any of us went through like a rehab or something like that, but like, I want to be healed. I'm going to do these things at work because I really want to change. A successful program would successfully change you. So of course it's works, but that's what salvation is being healed, acquiring the virtues. If you want it, if you want to be healed, we have a program for that in Orthodoxy. But you got to work at it. It's not God, well, there's nothing you can do to work. You've been found guilty. But if you sign this contract and say the minimal words and beliefs, then the sinner's prayer, etc., then I'll just declare you righteous and impute righteousness. That's Protestant. So, we disagree at a fundamental kind of level at the like the whole presupposition. That's why all the words that you use, that's why it's sometimes not helpful to let's just go to scripture. It's like, why would you go to scripture if you're going to read every single word is going to mean something different in the Orthodox paradigm than what? So let's start there. You have prior presuppositions. Most of that's actually, they don't even know, is founded on nominalism. The reformers were nominalists. Nominalism doesn't even come until, the Middle Ages. Scotus, William of Ockham, and stuff like. Guess what? St. Paul was not a nominalist. So yeah, your whole theory falls apart. So you can't read in. This is exactly what Protestantism and Roman Catholicism. They read in modern, very late philosophical presuppositions back into history that don't exist, and be like, well, see, the text just says what it means and means what it says what I mean, and not what you mean, because I have these erroneous modern presuppositions that I, Vatican I or nominalism or something, that I read back into the text. There was something else I was going to say too. Oh, well, we kind of talked about this yesterday. This came up the first time that I noticed this when I was writing my PhD thesis. And John Searle had a kind of a commentary on what what's going on in philosophy of mind with the mind-body problem. So typically in philosophy of mind, you have roughly two camps. Who created the mind-body problem? Descartes. Okay, it's his substance dualism. Then you get a reaction to it. This is like the Protestants. Well, we reject your substance dualists. We're materialists. Okay. So they go two different ways. They're both defining antithesis, just like the Roman Catholic and the Protestant. What John Searle points out is that, yeah, but the materialist is not the answer, because they presuppose the same conceptual error as the substance dualists. So the same error that leads to substance dualism is the same error that leads to materialism. So what's the problem? John Searle says it's the conceptual dualism. That those terms, mind and body, are defined in an antithesis, right? The literally opposite properties, so that there's no way to kind of relate them. They're incommensurate. And so John Searle's solution is like, well, you don't reject substance dualism, you reject the prior erroneous presupposition that led to that, which leads to, so you're neither a substance dualist nor a materialist. That's his solution. Anyways, there's something similar, I think, going on with Protestants. No, the problem isn't rejecting, the solution isn't rejecting Roman Catholicism, because in you rejecting, you still hold on to the conceptual framework and erroneous presuppositions that led to papism. You need to dial it back and reject those. We saw an example of this in terms of the dialectics, right? These dialectics of opposition, the notion of that you presuppose the kind of the only way is obviously meritorial salvation. That's wrong, so I reject it, and so man doesn't do anything. No, that's the whole framework's wrong. Jonathan, Jeb, $5. John Searle says mind and matter are two levels of one system. Could we, Eastern Orthodox, say nous, intellect, body are three levels of one system? Interesting. It's kind of vague what we mean. First of all, what John Searle means is, it's kind of complicated. Because it's not going to be, see, the materialist could actually say the same. John Searle is a biological naturalist, but he's not a materialist. So the materialist could actually say, and they do, you have different levels of description. Low level, kind of microphysics, and high level descriptions. And they'll say the language can't be reduced. High level, like we call it B level properties in philosophy of mind, can't be reduced to A level property, low level properties. However, the materialists will say, but ontologically they're the same. So it's just like we can't, there's different types of language. But mind really is body. It's just the language can't actually be reduced. And you get these kind of like, for example, like in science that, obviously most scientists would believe, well, there's only one it's not like there's two different realities out there, but you have different scientific language and kind of rules and stuff that works at one level, like quantum, that doesn't work at like macro level. But that, so some scientists are like, well, that's fine. It's just issue language, high level versus low level, but they're really the same. That's the material. Now, John Searle will want to say that he's an emergentist. Emergentism is created to refute materialism. So he'll say there are really novel properties. Now, he doesn't believe they're immaterial, non-physical, but he thinks they're natural properties. He's a biological naturalist. But he's not a materialist. Like, it can't be reduced. It's not identical to the same. In other words, liquidity is not the same as molecules of gas. It's a new emergent property. But it's not immaterial. It's just a new higher level of biological phenomena. Okay. So, how do we map that on to Orthodox understanding? So, 3 levels. There's 3 aspects. Think about this. Man has a soul. It's a rational essence that unites his body, right, into a unity. So it's not, like Aristotle says, it's not just like a mixture of parts. It's an actual organic unity. It moves, it lives, it does stuff. And the soul does that. But in the rational soul, there are 3 powers. The sensitive, right? There's a part of the soul, and it's united. It's not like there's 3 entities or 3 substance. It's one substance. It's one essence. Undivided. With liberty and justice for all. But there's a power of the soul that deals with the sensitive, like bodily stuff. Sensation, awareness, perception. There is a power of the soul that's intellectual. And there's a power of the soul that's the deepest part, the noetic part, the eyes of the heart. And really, that's the high, like, that is all within, right? It's kind of out of order, but it's supposed to be under the noetic, right? That's the unifying part of that. So if that's what we mean by 3 levels, maybe. Des, kind of $5, Father bless. Can't bless, but may the Lord bless. Can you explain nominalism and how it shapes the mindset of Protestants and where I can learn more about this? Sure is a book, I can't remember. Nominalism, let's just define nominalism, and then we'll see what the form. Certain Calvin was a nominalist. Luther toyed with it, and it affected his, like, sometimes it's hard to say was Luther nominalist, but it's like certainly he was influenced by it. And this comes out in terms of the soteriology, their theories of salvation. Okay, let's talk about essences. Essences, and this is theories of what we call real essentialism. I mean, essences are real. Thoughts belong to the intellect, emotions and sensations. Emotions would be the sensitive part of the soul. And then there's the noetic that is above actual thoughts. But they're all linked together. Like, they're not really ontologically separate. That's why it's better to think about them as powers. Yeah, no biggie on the whole, like, I don't get upset by the father. I just can't give a blessing, just so you guys know. That's priests only, and bishops. All right. So an essence is immaterial. It's a substance. It organizes substance. I mean, these essences that are immaterial are forms. And they form the matter. They make matter be what it actually is. They're equivalent to the predication of being. So if I look at the form of an orange tree, the material parts are not what the orange tree actually is. There's an immaterial essence that makes those parts and colors and leaves be an orange tree. Forms can't be sensed. They're invisible because they're intellectual substance. I mean, they're what the mind it's what the mind understands. Okay. It was my mom. My mom, she knows better. She always tries to call during a stream. Come on, Mom, please. During a stream. Anyways, okay. There's different things in the world, so there's different forms. And there's a hierarchy of it, right? There's inanimate things, rocks, and there are biological things like vegetated plants and stuff. They have us. We call those forms souls. Why? Because of the principle of animation. An anima means soul, and it's a form. It does stuff on its. It moves and it has emotion and life appropriate to its substance. Then you have an animal, which is, animal souls and forms, essences. Hence the word animal, that have a life and can move and do various things appropriate to its kind, reproduce. Animals have consciousness, awareness, qualitative, what it's like, experiences, but lack rational. So they may have a level. They have cognitive functions, but not rational cognitive functions. And then man has a rational essence, so embraces all of those principles, but has the ability to discursive reason, abstract from universals, create language, etc. A whole host of different things. Okay. Then, for Aristotle, he's not a Platonist, so he doesn't, when it comes to, so forms are individual immaterial essences that form matter and make things be what they are. Ousia, the being of a thing. All right. For Aristotle, he does not believe that, like Plato, that universals, right? Universals are not particulars. It's the class of all particulars. The alls. Plato believed universals really existed outside of the world in the mind. And the particular ideas and forms, eidos, have their being in virtue of the universal, the Platonic forms. Aristotle rejects that. That's called Platonic realism. And he says universals are created in the mind. And they're real, they're objective, it's not subjective. But they're created from the active intellect looking at particular forms and then seeing what they all, and creating a concept, a universal in the mind. And then he believes that actually has real ontological status. Like if you were to die, like that doesn't cease to exist. Like because you create it, but it's a real objective thing. It's just mind dependent. It's good. It's called conceptualism. Okay. Nominalists reject both of those. Okay. They would say universals are just names. They just function logically but they have no ontological status. So there's no real essence of humanity. There's a name in which we use to categorize all these things we call men. Okay, well, what does that mean when the reformers embrace that? Well, when Jesus Christ assumes human nature, there is no real essence of human nature in the particular or the universal. Okay? So, by becoming man, he does not assume the universal of humanity. So that means salvation can't be cashed out in terms of an ontological change, in which man, all of humanity, by assuming actual immaterial rational essence called, of human being, he assumes, he unites all human beings, takes them into death, into the resurrection, some to eternal bliss and some to eternal damnation, depending on what type of person you are, what kind of virtues. That's off the board. Like there is no restoration of human nature in nominalism because there aren't natures. All right. So that means everything has to be cashed out legally in terms of salvation. Do you see? So man doesn't work in acquiring virtues. So there's a pathway, right, that the human nature is now united to the divine. That doesn't happen in nominalism. So there's nothing man can actually do. This is why Luther says, man is snow-covered Scheisse. God just declares righteousness. He imputes righteousness upon, that's the snow. But there's no ontological change because there's no ontology, there's no essences or universals, right? So that's why it has to be cashed out in terms of a penal substitutionary atonement, imputed righteousness, all juridical. Does that make sense? But good question. So, because nominalism's false, also there's other thing, monoenergism. A lot of the Protestant, like the Calvinists, even though in the Westminster Confession, this, I guess they put in there that they believe in secondary causality. You know, people can say that, but it's obvious that the problem isn't did you say that, it's like you don't really actually believe. The rest of your theology is occasionalism. So you throwing in there thinking you're going to save yourself by like, well, no, we believe in. It's like clearly you don't believe in secondary causations. What does that mean? Well, there's two different types of causation, right? God is a cause, right? But so are you. So that's why, in terms of secondary causation, but like, yeah, God plays a causal role in salvation, but so do I, right? And notice there isn't this dialect. It's not an either or. Primary and secondary causes can work together. The reformers, especially Calvin, have reject that. They have occasionalism. That in order, they think, to preserve God's sovereignty, then like other causes would go against that, and therefore God is primary cause of everything. So that means you can't do anything because there is no secondary causality. So God has to do it for you. He has to declare you righteous, but there's no ontology. You don't acquire virtues and change because you like the shaisa, like your analogy, you're dung. So the only thing that can be done is the one who's in a position of sovereignty declares you righteous. That's what the theory. All right, other thoughts, questions? Good questions. By the way, I think the false dialectics too is why most of them are iconoclasts too. An icon is a symbol, a symbios, right? It's a bring. Symbios means a bringing together of two realities. It doesn't mean it's metaphorical, right? Notice how they even define symbolic. They define it in contrast to the real. But that's not what symbolic means. It's the bringing of heaven and earth together, right? Materially and immaterially together is the symbol. So they'd be like, it's either real or it's a symbol. See how they do this? So anyways, what is the icon? The person is present in the icon. It's a symbol of the person. What does it mean that you're made in the image, the icon of God, right? Is you have this immaterial aspect, right? The rational that's united with the material. You're a material and immaterial being. You're a symbol itself. You're an icon. What is the incarnation? The invisible, uncircumscribable, infinite God becomes visible and palpable and circumscribable, right? And he's the icon of the Father, and the icon is present in the hypostatic union in the person of Jesus Christ. So you could say, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. There it is. It's united. Okay? This is why, if you're an iconoclast, you don't even have correct Christology. I'm not even sure if, and I'd probably make an argument like it would make with about the Muslims. You're not even referring to the same thing because of that. Why? Because the incarnation and the hypostatic union require the theology of the icon. So you have these presuppositions and dialectics of opposition and stuff like that. That's why you're an iconoclast, and that's why you're not worshiping and referring to the same God, the same Jesus, any more than the Mormon is. Snow cookies, $5. If loci are distinct from created essences, would we still say that universals exist in the mind of God? You have to be real careful about. So if I had a picture piece of paper or something. So here is God, the essence of God. The Father, right? Who gives this to this isn't perfect, but with the Venn diagram, but biggest part of the essence of God, right, that the Father has is given to the Son of the Holy Spirit. Holy God, light of light, very God of very God. Okay? Then the things around God proceed from his essence are the logoi. And they're really God. They're just not his essence. But notice, analogously, just like rays of light from the sun, they proceed from the essence. They're connected. It's just, okay. Universals. So this is the uncreated. Uncreated means God. That's the uncreated right there. And then I guess you could have circles out from there. Then God creates. These are the divine conceptual. These are the divine, what you could say is analogous to God's divine thoughts. Okay? They're eternal, they're infinite, they're really distinct. God's idea of justice has not collapsed into mercy. Like, they're really distinct ideas. But both end. They're united, and so this is why Roman Catholics, when they make fun of us, saying, oh, you actually believe that there's a real distinction and God that applies composition and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, good luck, dude. Now to explain the Trinity. The Trinity actually says what? One in many. The same real distinction between the persons, yet they're fully God. But they're distinct, but they're united. That same distinction is with the energy. So, yeah, you deny that that's impossible, that there's katapanoia, real distinctions among God's divine energies, then you have no argument for Trinitarianism, you idiots. Like, congratulations. You have a modal collapse on the persons of the Trinity. Oh, do you really think it's cool to say, well, the persons are just virtually distinct? Or they lend to, well, they're not virtue, there's a distinction, there's a reality that lends to, but it's just conceptual, right? God bless, Michelle. All right. Oh, no, they're really distinct. Out here, so if this is the, let's kind of color it so that, you know, the dark area is the created. Only God is uncreated. That's why the logoi are God. The divine energies are actually God. They're uncreated. Only God is uncreated. From those, what you would call are analogous to the divine ideas, are created universals. They have their being. If they weren't, so this is God's thought wills. He willed from his divine ideas to create a universal. Okay, They're not identical, though, any more than when you create a painting or a paper or something like that. It obviously reflects some of your ideas, but it's not reducible. Like your ideas and thoughts and who you are is much more than what you actually create. But part of you's in that. It reflects you. So universal is the same way. That this is created from the divine ideas, the energies, and it reflects. And God holds them, and they're connected. They participate. Remember, he says, in him we move, live, and have our being. They have their being in virtue of being sustained by God and his divine energies. Okay. Second, from the universals, particular essences and forms have their being. See? So here's God's essence given from the Father to the Son. The Son fully has it in the Holy Spirit. Oops, I'm not even Holy Spirit. The things around God is St. Maximus, so the divine ideas, the energies, the logoi. They're infinite, they're really distinct. But this realm here is uncreated. That's why it's God. Only God's uncreated. He creates universals from his divine ideas. He holds it, right? But they're not reducible to his divine ideas. The logoi are much more than the universal, but the universal has its being and reflects those. He sustains them, and from the universals, he creates individual essences, and individual essences are united in material things. That's it. That's how. I wish there was something like Zoom where I could actually do a. What if I can? You know where you can do a drawing. Let me see if there's like a web page. That'd be cool. And again, these are just not like you're visually limited when you're trying to. This is why even trying to depict this can only be analogous, because it's like, yeah, well, one part of the circle's left. It's like it's hard to visually represent that. Let's see. Online whiteboard. You know what's so stupid about these things? Oh, I gotta sign up. Do I have something in my, let's see, whiteboard? Guarantee this one's gonna make me sign up for. Yep. Wow, Lord. Wow. Can't you just give me something that I can just use right away? Does anybody know something about how to sign up? Oh yeah, maybe paint. Maybe I have to do paint. Let's see if it even I can share this, because sometimes. I don't even think it's gonna let me share. Oh yeah, it does. But it's black. So it doesn't work. I knew that was gonna happen. Well, sorry guys, until. Alright, let me try one more thing, see if this works. Man, it's humid today. Which is weird for Montana. For Kentucky. some reason won't pick it up. Oh well. All right. So I can't share even my paint. Let me just. All right, other questions. Those are good questions. Thank you. Oh, that's interesting. Is there a fallacy trying to make you define terms over and over? It's called the Intel bombing. Well, first of all, fallacy has to be presenting an argument that's not good as if it were. So there would have to be some sort of inference made from that. So I don't know. Like insulting somebody's not a fallacy unless I draw an inference, right? That doesn't follow from. But yeah, somebody said. Gish galloping. It's a retort. Yeah, where you just keep bombarding with people so they can't. But that's a. First of all, defining your terms is necessary. And so it's hard for me to think how that could actually. It may be unproductive at some level. It's like, well, I can't even make my art because like every single thing that but yeah, I don't think. And how would you determine when it's unproductive other than like, well, I just can't even get a word in edgewise or something like that because you just keep like there's obviously a level of where it's like, well, this isn't going anywhere. Like you have to seriously define every single word. But you know, it is important because there's two different, as we saw in logic, there's semantical disagreements and factual disagreements. Some is about, well, we mean we're having a disagreement about the meaning word. Actually, that's really interesting. I should have brought that up in the debate. Because Trent's point was, if we're not talking about the same thing, we're not having a disagreement. Well, that's a failure to distinguish between semantic disagreements and factual disagreements. You know, is the factual is we know what Denver and Colorado and a state and place and all these things mean. We're agreed on that. We're having a disagreement, a factual disagreement of whether Denver is the capital of Colorado. Okay, versus what do you mean by that term? And you know, that did come up in the Garby paper is that's why these are Burlean conditions. What they ignored is the special semantic character of belief statements. So, no, we're not talking about the same thing because it doesn't mean the same thing. That's what the whole debate's about. And you just hand wave and be like, well, no, I'm not going to address that. If it doesn't mean the same thing, we're not referring to the same thing. See? And yes, empirically, and I mean, that's what sense and reference is about, meaning and reference. Now, empirically, one of the things that why all these failed for the two philosophers is that on all the empirical cases, Superman, the Hooded Man, Clark Kent, all these different things, it already presupposes, or Hesperus and phosphorus, water, H2O, it already assumes that we've figured out and know. And we can do that empirically, first of all. Clark Kent is Superman. You're begging you can't use that for God because that's what's in question. Do we know that despite the difference in sense, radical different sense, between the Muslims' conception of God and it nevertheless still refers to the same entity? So what do they have to do? They beg the question. They assume exactly what's in. Well, just like the empirical things where we actually do know, therefore we know. No, that's what's in question. And no, your argument doesn't work. Of course, you're failing to distinguish between factual disagreements and semantic disagreements. We're having a disagreement. Does the meaning and the concept in the long conjunct, what does that mean in terms of reference? We have different meanings. And that's what's the disagreement is about. Oh, that's interesting. Spirit-led Paul. I mean, there's no I don't think. Yeah, it's a good. It probably falls under as a species of teaching. I mean, if you're debating, you're presenting yourself as representing the orthodox position. In which case you need a blessing to do something like that. And let's just think in terms of practice, like you ought to. So even if there weren't canons specifically about, and by the way, somebody was trying to argue. I blocked this person. It was maybe like 5-6 months ago. I was on Facebook that, oh, there are no canons that require somebody to get a blessing to teach. Yeah, they are. They're and even conceptual, like the whole term apostolos, right? Set like it's unorthodox to be like. I mean, just think about it, if there weren't canons, you could still make an argument. It is unorthodox to represent the church on matters of doctrine and practice and worship if you're not sent, if you're not under somebody, like that you could just be like, well, I'm orthodox and I can just do things. I mean, just so even if there weren't canons, it's still wrong. Like, yes, they do have a blessing. And furthermore, that's why I put them under, they agreed to be put under. If you look, the contributors are under the authority of clergy on patristic faith. So that protects them. That's an additional level of protection. Not only did Jay, get from his previous bishop a blessing, and Father Vlad, that's why I'm encouraging people plug into an authorized source, like ancient, like even if it's ancient faith, patristic nectar, in which it's an official blessed organization. It has a board, it has a clergy advisory, you're under clergy and stuff. Otherwise, you don't have any protection. Like, you're out doing your own, people can criticize you. Like, in a world of, like, free market online orthodox content provider, like, yeah, it's not a blessed for you to do. And even if you get, first of all, you need an episcopal blessing. Priest can't even, right? That's why Jay's priest, Father Vlad, took it to his bishop. Priest has not the authority to be like, I give you the blessing too, because I saw a lot of that. Well, my priest gives me the blessing. It's like a priest doesn't have the authority to do that. Oh, I saw that. One of the Latinizer priests. Of course, they have authority to. I mean, that's crazy. Well, I mean, it depends on what we mean. The priest represents generally the authority of Orthodox practice and can declare that. They can't do anything outside of the people in their parish, if that's what. But I mean, that would be like saying a priest doesn't have the authority to tell people what's Orthodox theology beyond the people in their parish. That's a great argument, actually. I didn't even think about that until now. It's like, well, they don't have maybe the authority to kick them out or something because they're not even in their parish, but like, that's what it means to be apostolos and be part of the priesthood. You have the authority, unlike laity, to actually teach, and the teachings are binding upon you. Now, what they could do is go contact the other priest and they have that authority too. But so notice they're muddying the waters there. But yeah, I saw that. That was one of the arguments that that guy on Facebook was saying. No priest has the authority to. It's like they have authority to declare generally what Orthodox theology, doctrine, and practice is. Do they have the authority to enforce it outside the church? No, like, but so see, they're noticing. Otherwise, you have to say the priest has no authority to declare Orthodox theology beyond his parish, which is a stupid. All right, we got a bunch of questions we got to dig into. Let me see if we have any super chats. Priority, send in your super chats. Priorities are given to super chat questions. And we only had 1, 2, 3, 4 super chats today. Oh, Dave, that's a good point. So it would be a fallacy if you were required to define words that weren't necessary to make the argument. Then there's an actual kind of inference being made. It's not relevant to. So yeah, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of words that'd be like, I don't know what that word means. Some arcane, weird. Oh, like, well, then you can't make an art. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it doesn't. If it doesn't have anything to do, it's not necessary for the then. Like, yeah, you're actually committing a fallacy saying it's necessary that you have to define this unrelated term. The Ashen One. Regarding ecumenism apart from prayer, what can laymen do when borderline ecumenism and other unorthodox teachings are happening nearby? Who's doing the you mean the priest is in the parish teaching or bringing unorthodox practices? Is that the question? Well, first of all, what you can do, I mean, there's like a series of steps. Parishioners can write a letter. You can get parishioners together, and it's that these things are unacceptable, or there's a problem in the parish or something like that, and then that's sent to the parish council, and the priest would be addressed. Failure to address that properly, that could be then sent to the dean, and then eventually the bishop. That's typically how, and there might be appropriate times too to confront the people, like, this isn't, I know I'm just laity, but this isn't actually orthodox. And if they persist, then it goes like a letter to, you get people together and you send a letter to the parish council, then the dean, then the bishop would go, yeah. Should we pray with family members who aren't Orthodox? We hold hands when we pray. I wouldn't do. My family's Protestant, and they're really respectful. Well, and part of it's because I'm clergy. They would ask me to, like, I can lead anybody in prayer. So can you. But to pray with, right? So notice leading, heterodox and, even pagans in prayer. I'm going to pray for you, or I'm going to lead the prayers very different than I'm praying with you. With means you're with them. You believe the same things that they, and that can't be done. And I would definitely say a sign of that is that you're in unity holding hands together. I would never do something like that. I've had people, especially evangelicals, can I pray over you? Lay the hand and be like, absolutely not. You're under me. You could pray for me. You can't pray over me. Remember, there was some guy, like, there was a video of Father Peter here's in Greece or something, and some evangelical tried to do, and he called him out. Be like, that is so that's so anarchical and anti-authority and disrespectful. That would be like telling you're like a child going to their father and be like, I'm going to pray over you. Not pray for you, Dad. I'm praying over you. What is he doing? He's usurping the father's, the family's authority. He's placing himself above the father. That's like, I'm going to do this over you, Father. Some action. You can do something for the father. You can't do something in your family if you're a child over the father. It's the same thing with, like, I would absolutely be totally offended. And I have been. I told people, did you not put your hand on me and pray over me? You don't have the authority. You're not sent. There's only two offices that can actually pray over me, and that's the priest, which he actually does. He lays his hand on, right? Both in the I love is clergy that I do my confessions literally on the altar. Put my hand over, right? Praying to Christ. And the priest has a stool over me. The prayer before I partake of the chalice at the end of the liturgy, what does the priest do? I go over to the table of oblation, I lay my head, and the priest prays over me. I lay my head down. When I go to do a litany, Father, pray for me. When I start it's time for the Lord to act. Father, bless. He blesses me. The Lord bless you. Pray for me, Father. Remember me, Father. Right? He's praying over me. I literally pray. The bishop does the same thing. Right? I bow my head and he prays over me. They're the only two offices that can do that over the diaconate. Never let anybody, and as an Orthodox Christian, do not let anybody that would pray over you who's heterodox or heretical. It means you're acknowledging they have authority over you, and they don't. They're heretics. So there's nice ways to do. I mean, you could just be like, I'm uncomfortable with that. I don't, if they try to push that, I'd be like, I don't mind praying for you. Please don't ask me to do something that is incorrect according to my faith. yeah, you take, if the priest double downs on the filioque or something like that, right? You let the parishioner, some of the parishioners know, you write a letter and be like, this is unacceptable. Like, you know, laity have removed priests from their parish. Like, if they're like, this is not a good priest, we don't want this person. You've heard those funny stories where the priest is literally locked out of the parish and the bishop has to deal with it. It's like, we don't want him. We don't want this in our parish. People have a right. It's not clericalism. Priest says, jump and you say how high, right? We have parish council. There's checks and balances. A priest can't just do whatever they want. Yeah, that's fine. You can pray with her there and she listens. And, even if they're praying, you can respectfully kind of bow your head and, so just don't make it look like I'm praying. There's a way that in your mind, you could just respectfully kind of put and be like, I'm not praying with them, I'm praying for them in my heart, but I'll respectfully, just kind of be silent and yeah, I would say that too. If I'd want a lady to be like, if you ever see me say something wacko or bizarre, like, yeah, I'd appreciate if you came to me like, I don't think that's right. That doesn't sound right. That's why I always said, I'm like, I don't mind, you know, asking questions and even pushback at a certain level, but like, obviously, it's the way somebody does that. Um, and whether I'm leaning my own understanding, we had this guy in a Telegram group that proceeded to there was an arrogance, like I like to use the word salty. You can just pick up on the way. Sometimes it's hard because it's in text. You can't actually tell, you misunderstand. And so I always give people the benefit of the doubt. But there was just an era of it. I was just like, and he says, of course we know that Muslims and Christians worship together. This whole debate that you're having is ridiculous, is silly. It's like, I can't even imagine saying that to like Father Russell. Of course, it's iconoclasm, Father. The fact that you even have to, try to argue people for icons is stupid and silly. Like, that would be disrespectful, right? So not only is it wrong, it's like you could have approached. If I had a question, if I thought a priest was wrong about, I would probably present it in a question. Can you help me out, Father? Like, I'm a bit confused about what you were saying on, from what I know. I would do something like that. I wouldn't be like, that's silly and stupid. And the fact that you're even like, you probably shouldn't start conversations with your higher ups like that, even if they could be wrong. So I got that in the Telegram group. I was like, what was this guy's deal? And he proceeded to argue with me. Again, I don't mind a little pushback, but there was a sort of kind of saltiness and arrogance. Like, oh, obviously I know better. That's why I told the individual, I'm like, even if it's theoretically possible that you're right and I'm wrong about this, don't you find it odd? I'm not saying you can't find a priest that, or a philosophy professor that would believe the opposite, But this should be cause for at least a pause and be like, maybe I should rethink about this situation. I asked the person, do you not find it odd that every priest that I've talked to agrees exactly with what I'm saying? And every Orthodox philosophy professor I had like conversation with, I mean, was it a huge group, like 3 or 4, and they were like, yeah, absolutely. We don't refer to or worship the same entity that the Muslims refer to when they say God. That I might be the sort of person that, like, if I'm like, yeah, there were a handful of philosophers and other priests, and I said, don't you find it interesting that the priests up here, because this person went to Orthodox Montanica, that Father Russell, one of the most respected priests, I brought this up to him, and he was like, of course we don't. Like, it's totally unorthodox. I'm like, so what are the odds that all the priests up here, and the priests that I've talked to, and all those philosophers, we're all wrong, and you layperson, are correct on this? Maybe, but what are the odds? Shouldn't that just be like, yeah, maybe I should do some introspection and be more kind of self-aware and think about it a little bit before I start going on with a salty attitude on Telegram and calling out the deacon for being silly, and there was just a sort of kind of aggressiveness too in arguing. I was about ready to boot the person, where I'm like, you know what, don't come back if you're gonna be this way. Like, I don't want to have to deal with it. All of that's to say that, again, I don't mind people questioning me and giving a little pushback. But again, my positions are not simply, I didn't derive this position because I'm a philosopher and I worked through the philosophy of it. I was taught this in the phronema and the ethos of the church. I'm not leaning on my own understanding. So, again, that makes a big difference too. Like, I mean, is this his deacon's personal opinion, or, are these things he believes because his higher ups and his spiritual father and the priests he works with, that's what they believe, that's what they hold. I'm under them. I mean, imagine, like, I'm gonna change my position, even though I'm under Father Russell and my spiritual father and the bishop. I'm gonna change my position against what they're saying because you, a layperson, say I'm wrong. Like, I would think that that's far more disastrous. I should actually say that. Be like, you want me to go against the hierarchy on this? I'll tell Father Russell, you're encouraging me to go against my hierarchs. So, anyways, I was like, well, am I just like paranoid? Like, I'm on social media all the time having to deal with goofuses and people fighting with me and being aggressive and disrespectful. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I'm just sensitive. So, what did I do? I asked some of the people, parishioners that are on that Telegram, I'm like, do you find it weird? Was it weird? He was like, no, it was aggressive. It was weird. And I'm like, okay. Right. So it gives I'm moving out of my kind of subjectivity in my own head and be like, so you're picking up on that. It's not just me, right? That's a helpful kind of tool. Because I give the benefit that maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just extra sensitive because of having to deal with this. And then when I get confirmation from other people, like, no, it was a salty and aggressive and disrespect. I'm like, okay, I got it. I mean, there's obviously priests that I don't like that um I think are incorrect, severely incorrect about, both pastorally and, theologically unrespectful. Like, um, you know, could there ever be a situation where, you know, you call them out and somewhat not, maybe, I don't know, but like, yeah, even people that are just like, I don't think this guy's a good priest, as they still would kiss their hand and respect them, because respect like, I believe they have a legitimate office, like they're above me. It doesn't matter, if I think they're not a great priest. um I believe in the Orthodox Church and the hierarchy of, and their office is a legitimate office, and I'm respectful of that. All right. No more super chats. What's going on? We do have 40. What's the peak concurrent viewers we had? 50. Not bad. I think we're getting a little better. We're ramping up the Patristic Faith. We got a lot of events and new things scheduled. Craig, you have a question about a saint. Yes, Raymond, great question, by the way. Yeah, we're not Donatists. So Donatism came up in the, what was it, 5th century? That the efficacy of the sacraments and the legitimacy of the office of the priest is dependent on their actions and or sins, things like that. They could hold to heresies, or their impiety would invalidate their priesthood, and it was ruled that's a heresy. And that, again, the office of the priesthood is protected. In fact, the Father says in the liturgy, and do not withhold these gifts because of my sin. Isn't that cool? It's actually in the liturgy. One of the reasons why is if we held to some type of criteria like that, we don't ever know. You would never know anything. It would just be epistemic chaos and nihilism. You don't know what at any point in time some heretical view a priest might hold, or like some terrible action that they're sin and they're involved. Like, we don't. So God protects that within his body. But once you're excommunicated, it's like a banishment, right? When this happens in history, where a person's found judged are found wanting and they're guilty, they're banished out of. You know what that means? They no longer have the protections of the society. Their lives are in the hands of God. So they're like, we don't know. May God deal with you. You're outside of the protection. It's sort of like that with the communion. When you're excommunicated, it's not a pronouncement. Like, it certainly is a judgment on that's a road to hell. Like, but we don't know. Like, we don't make judgments on who's in and who's out in terms of salvation. But you are outside the ark now. You're in literally unprotected waters. And Somalia pirates are going to get you, probably. Yeah, you're not, and you lose the grace of the office. Like, you do not have that. Inside, you're protected. Outside, you're the office and the grace is removed from, and you're in Oh, Craig S. Saint Maria, also known as Saint Maria Paris. She was a nun who was killed in a Nazi concentration camp for helping to shelter Jews during World War II. Um, what's the question? I know about her. But thanks for $10. I mean, Saint Maria is obviously it's controversial because of her previous commitment to like she was a Marxist. Um, but obviously, um, and how much we actually know, I couldn't answer. I'm not an expert on that issue, but trying to save somebody's life obviously is a saintly action. Even considering the Jews are the enemies of Christian, like, um, Scripture does say that uh, you'll know them because they love. Well, even the pagans love those who love themselves. Real Christian love is to love thy enemies. So, uh, you know, perhaps that was one of the things that the church saw in Saint Maria Paris is that even the Jews historically are the enemies of Christians. Like to love that would be a loving act. Yeah, there's more stuff that like she was into poor and sick. But even if she had some liberal kind of obviously I don't think she left Marxism and stuff like that's totally incompatible with. Did she have elements of like kind of a liberal? But obviously it's not why she was made saint. We have saints that were actually fascists, like so they're not made saints because they subscribe to the political theory of fascism, but because of the Christian works that they actually did. So I think if you kind of approach it that way, you can separate like somebody's political ideologies that could be incorrect from actually who they are and what they did. Spirit like Paul 999. The rudder states there is no salvation outside of the church. Is that because essentially if one is saved, it's outside the norm? Yeah. There's the church is established as the one means to actually so you can't be like this is the way I put it. Yeah, there is absolutely no salvation outside of the church. If somebody is saved outside of the church, it's not because there was let's say a Protestant or something. It's not because of their Protestantism, because there's no salvation outside of the it would be despite it. I mean, despite of the Protestant, they're still saved, right? So what that does is it qualifies the salvation is not in Protestant. It's not in anything outside of the church. It's in the church, and in some way they would be still mystically united to. So the salvation is in and through the church, even if they like a person didn't have normal means like being in and baptized. Of course it's possible, but that still maintains salvation is in the church alone. That would be recently a bunch of Romanian saints were canonized that subscribe to various uh that's why uh the Fortumites and public orthodox are like freaking out about they're making all these articles like oh they're fascist, they can't be saints and stuff like that. Which is interesting. Isn't it interesting we actually have saints that are fascist? We don't have any Marxist saints. Like, we have an example of a saint that left Marxist. Might have been somewhat politically liberal or something like that, but I think that, like, fascism is literally the most evil thing, right, for the liberal. And yet, you don't, they're fine with Marxist theories and stuff like that, but it's like, isn't that interesting? There are no Marxist saints. There are fascist saints, but there are no Marxist like saints. Like, so what does that say about, like, is fascism literally the most evil thing out there? Like, I don't know about that. It's obviously there's, you know, we can critique it and stuff like that, but yeah, I don't. It's above my pay grade. I just don't know enough, Craig, how to answer that. You have to go to somebody who's more qualified on that area. I, sorry, but thank you for your question, super chat. All right, other questions. Dude, what? This can't be real. You guys are gonna get a kick out of it. We gotta play. This is kind of funny. That's the problem. Now that we have AI, I have no idea what. I can't tell what's real anymore. Did that actually happen? There's no way. I can't even hear what language it's in. The audio is not good. Canonical. And she looks like she's kind of like old, elderly. Maybe not. No, maybe she's probably in her 40s. Is that real? If you're a clergy, what would you do if you saw that? You're like, knock it off. Get out of the go back outside, pull yourself together, and when you're ready to be respectful, you come back. And isn't that what, like, elementary school teachers would say? They call you out on doing something ridiculous and be like, go outside, pull yourself together, and when you're ready to actually be a normal human being and do class, come back in. Yeah, one of the reasons why the rudder is not always used is people don't understand how canon law works. And they read it probably like a bunch of Talmudists, like Talmudic tards. It's eternal law, like, it's like, first of all, it's the bishop that they're rules, guidelines. Just like in secular legal systems, there's the stuff that's on the books. I mean, this is just an analogy. Um, but it's judge. The judge could say, like, look, the fine, penal code, blah blah blah, says this. It's on the book. That's the rule. That's the canon. Given the circumstances, I'm just gonna let you off with a warning. Even the police officer has that too. So there's an analogy that, like, the bishop's the judge and the priest is like the officer. They have the ability to apply a canon or not. Also, how to interpret it. They're, and there are different categories. Like, there's stuff that's like Christological, theological. Like, obviously, even the bishops have to, right? You can't be like, well, I'm not gonna, like a canon, for example, from Ephesus, not add anything to the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed, something like, yeah, you can't. So there's nuance in it, you know what I mean? Like, there's some stuff you can't, there's some stuff that the bishop has the authority to apply to, like, there's some stuff that is like, nobody in their right mind would ever think of applying canons. And like, clergy can't ride horses. Like, there's a bunch of like funny ones that it's just like, well, the guidelines, right? And then there's stuff that's more theological. So it really is this kind of Talmudic idea. So, like, when people are, like, atheists always do this too. Well, you're not consistent with, laws against homosexuality because, you still eat, shellfish. I just saw this come up the other day with something. What was it? It was for some stupid atheist making some argument. Like, or maybe it was a Protestant, which is probably at this point the same thing. That they didn't want to follow something. What's the New Testament now? I think it actually was a Protestant supporting, like, Skittles. And it's like, do you know what's also in the Old, like, Testament? Thou shalt not murder. Are you saying we can murder now because it's the New Testament? We don't have to respect, honor our mother and father. Like, are you retarded? Do you not understand that there's different types of laws? Some are eternal, some are theological, some are pedagogical, some are practical, right? Well, just assume it all into one thing. Muslims are like this too. You change. That's why you've got this new group of people kind of coming in. These messianic Christians, like, well, you guys change. You can't change anything, right? It's like, well, do you not know the purpose of, like, and distinctions and nuances in law? I'll tell you what. If you're that dumb, you shouldn't be reading this stuff and working out your own theology. You're too dumb to give me that. Well, obviously it's not true. That, well, changed. What is? Nobody's changing the canons. Yeah, what means changed there is you're adding a canon, like you're, um but no, it doesn't take a council on most of these canons to be like, I'm not applying that. Like, it just does not relate to the world anymore. um Clearly there can't be anybody, I don't know, maybe true genuine Orthodox who are mentally ill themselves think stuff like that. um but yeah, to It's probably referring to stuff like, for example, the canon of not adding. I mean, obviously there's certain canons. Again, this is just to collapse it. All canons are exactly the same in every single way, and there's no nuance. So obviously, I would assume Saint Nicodemus is talking about like the stuff that you can't. You say every single one, like it has to be applied. Uh, a clergy member is gonna like be defrocked if they ever ride a horse or something like. So, anyways, that's probably what he's referring to. Like, yeah, you can't be like, we're no longer applying the canon. Uh, the bishop can't do that. We're no longer applying the canon from Ephesus concerning adding to the creed, but he can with, as far as like what a penance is, what level of uh, penances are to be like clearly you can do that without and just historic like also just look way to figure this out. It doesn't matter what Saint Nicodemus says. What is the history of the church? Like what happens in the church? Any like any even saint can be wrong about something. Like, yeah, good questions. The reason why, yeah, is that having a horse was a sign of nobility, and they wanted to keep those offices between nobility and the priesthood. There's also canons too that are similar to the reasoning behind why priests weren't allowed to be on clergy weren't allowed to be on horses. Is that um we clergy can't hold a political office. Why can't be a DA or uh, representative? Can't be president. Like you can't. So obviously you can see the reasoning behind it. It's like they're trying to keep those offices separate. Um, but we no longer have that. Oh, another canon um, forbids clergy and laity from going to a tavern. So if we actually apply the canons, nobody could ever go to a bar, a tavern. Well, what was the reason behind it? Because taverns, when that canon was made, were brothels. Theater, there's canons against, so that would mean you can't watch movies anymore. Well, the times change. Back then, there was pagan stuff going on in the theaters. Uh, what's another? Oh, there's severe canons for self abuse. That like if anybody ever did that, you can't be clergy. Well, I hate to say this, that would mean there's no clergy. Like, you wouldn't be able to, it's a terrible sin. I know, like, I'm not lessening that, but um, there's realities of situations in which, those things have to kind of not be applied and changed. What is another, like, penances on, especially the kind of the sexual stuff, even for lady, like you literally would have nobody in the church, like, um, so, anyways, oh, Anna, good, God bless you. we'll just pray for Father Peter. He's in a difficult situation. I don't think any fault of his own with what the bishops did. So, he's a legitimate. I mean, like he hasn't been. He's had no discipline. Actually, it's just an unfortunate situation because the bishops didn't do stuff correctly. Trying to transfer. So that's what I'll say about that. So pray for him. There was something I was going to say, though, about the kind of legalism. Oh, yeah, you get these messianic... You guys changed the date of Easter from... Like, have you heard that one? That it's like, so what? We have the authority to do it, you idiot. We're not Talmudic legalists, Pharisaical legalists. These people just need to be made fun of at this point. I mean, think about how stupid it reminds me of the principle that you're not a woman, so you can't have opinion about. Well, you're not a man, and you can't have an opinion about me being a man having an opinion about one. Checkmate. And think about how stupid. So what's the principle behind? Unless you're this absolute identical in every single way, you can't make a moral, legal, or epistemic judgment about. Think about what that would lead to in life. Boy, you can't make a judgment about this rabid animal running to, because you're not a rabid animal. See? You can't. It reminds you of the same, like, the thing about this, what's your principle? Nothing can change in life, ever. Did you always believe that? No. Well, then you just contradict you. You change something in life. Like, I mean, the levels of stupidity are on the rise. It is probably time to finish. Noon. What else? There's so much stuff, more news we could have covered. Look at this. Speaking of psychedelics, why does this look appealing to people? I can't get it now. I'm trying to find.
All aboard, Ed.
Right, let's see him pop. Stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Listen to this. Somebody made this. For Psychonauts. Does this look like a good time? Cool.
Airlines. Good evening, passengers. You are now boarding Flight 888 to the mythopoetic subconscious, a round-trip voyage through the inner atmosphere of symbol and soul. Your pilot is Captain Edgars, licensed facilitator of Altered State Aviation. Chief Cabin Attendant is Mervyn, a puppet, a grief whisperer, FAA certified in ego disintegration.
So you go on this psychedelic journey on a psychedelic plane, and you jump out. because you're so high that you think you can fly and you kill yourself.
Please direct your attention
All these people need to obviously take a bath.
to the following safety protocol. All unresolved traumas must be stored in the overhead bin. Heavier repressions may be checked at the gate. If forgiveness begins to leak, a puppet in a chromatic leotard will appear with a butterfly net. This flight is non-linear. Chronometric cognition must be disabled. Temporal logic should be set aside.
I bet that Gnostic dude made this. This is what he...
Please switch all devices to poetic mode. As we prepare for takeoff, Captain Edgar reminds you, the ego does not like acceleration. You may feel panic, a psychic clench, a sudden urge to check your inbox. That's just the veil resisting lift.
The veil.
And now, ignition. Engines ignite with the sound of children's laughter. The fuselage groans with imagination.
Hell to me.
Memories shuffle. The aisle becomes a Mobius strip. Mervyn, now dressed as a Freudian cloud wearing nipple tassels, offers...
Jeez, dude. Exactly. All right, I'm taking this off. That's disgusting. We should have told that guy, you know what? Psychedelics are gonna make you gay, dude. Look at the... What a nightmare, dude. They have THC alcohol drinks? Oh, what? Yeah, I wouldn't. Unless you have some type of medical thing that you worked out with your priest that you should be ingesting like, no, you should not be using mind altering drugs recreational or to achieve spiritual. Yeah, there you go. We got our answer. Of course it turns you into Skittles. Yeah, that's her. But priest drives a white horse on it. It's a white horse heresy. There were some other funny canons I was trying to think of too, that it's just like you just refute these people like showing like you really think you're gonna apply. Oh, that's funny. I do know that they have like one of the breweries here like partnered with a dispensary and they offer Kush beer. But they were like, there's no THC or CBD or anything. Like, I guess it has the flavor, like it's just stupid. But I did see in places they have CBD. I don't know how, like, obviously CBD is not THC. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know how effective CBD is outside of being activated from THC, so that's like, is it just a placebo? So like, I don't, but obviously it's not a mind altering. CBD isn't, so that shouldn't be an issue. But like THC, like I would recommend not, and that's something you need to talk to your priest about. But like, you're not, Orthodox are not supposed to be taking that recreationally or use in terms of spiritual advancement or something like that. So that makes it pretty clear. Funny story though, speaking of not seeing labels. So it was a long time ago. I had a Volkswagen Beetle and like I got in an accident, so I had to restore that Beetle, and so I knew how to do like stuff and paint it. I spent once, like, I basically built a paint tent at, like, my grandfather's passed away since then, but it was my grandmother's. I think we were living. I think it was when I returned back from Ireland. So I remember my wife was with me, and I was taking care of my grandmother. But anyways, I built a paint tent and was like painting the after I fixed the car, and I that summer, like, for some really like I would never drink this stuff anymore because of the sugar, but Mike's Hard Lemonade, and my grandmother was still like up and at him at that point, and could go like she would go to the she could still drive. That's crazy. I remember that. And she would go to Ralph's, the market, and she was like, "Oh, you want anything? You want me to get you those lemonades that you?" Oh yeah, I would love a 6-pack of Mike's Hard Lemonade. She never knew. She actually thought it was lemonade. She didn't know they were actually alcoholic beverages. And you see that a lot with a lot of products too. That sometimes it's hard to like my. I was like, that is alcoholic beverage or what? That's interesting. I thought THC is illegal in Texas. Huh. Not in Houston. Don't go to Houston. All right. Let's see if we have any more super chats and let you guys go. Thank you so much for all your support, the super chats. And that's Dave, Philippian, Eric, Jonathan Jeb, Des Decan G, Craig, and Spirit Led Paul. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for those who joined us in prayers this morning. And I will not be tomorrow. I have get to go to the doctor, talk to him about where I'm at with my foot, and then Chris and I are working on my cars all day, so I won't be around. So until Friday, I think we might be doing I need to write the person real quick about possible stream with philosopher from Oxford on Heidegger, and I'll post that. But God bless you and keep you. May His grace preserve you. And till next time, God bless.